All right, welcome back. This is vlog 43. It is, are there unique challenges to men with long COVID or chronic illness? Um, at the level of sociality, no. Biologically, yes. And I'll put, I'm not going to get into any of those things in this because I tried doing that in another video. It took too long to discuss. But this came up as one man who has long COVID made an infographic or graphic or whatever you want to call it, like this chart that says the unique challenges single men face with long COVID diagnosis, particularly, and this is the important part, loss of the male societal role of being provider and protector. And he goes on to list like 10 things that are not at all unique to men. But this is why he had to point out the loss of the male societal role. Right? So when you get sick, for example, right, especially as a man or even a woman, but especially I think especially as a man, this is why he's right in a very weird, dumb way. In that, yes, it's true. Like getting disabled directly challenges gender roles immediately. But Brad is not coming at this from a feminist framework. And I mean, I have issues with feminism too, but that's because I'm a communist. And so, but the framework is ostensibly true in the sense that yes, there are gender roles are basically socially constituted, socially, historically, materially constituted, right? Which is the polite way of saying that like they're made up. All right. And so, but Brad has what we call like a bioessentialist view of it. And a bioessentialist view says that complex human behaviors and identities and social roles are strictly determined by biology or genetics. So then genetics becomes sort of like this destitutional force, more so than material circumstances. In any case, I think he has to point this out because it directly affects him, which is true. But I would also point out that this would also be true if his job just got automated. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if this is true whether he got sick or his job got automated or it got offshored or it was displaced somehow, right? It doesn't just have to be disability. So think of for example, all the people who used to work, men who used to work in steel mills. That was their identity. I go to the steel mill. I go in at 6 in the morning and I come back at 6 at night, et cetera, and so forth. And then 10 years later, they invent a new process that makes steel with 50,000 less men. Well, they have to introduce machinery. And that machinery doesn't have a gender to it. And you would never say that that is a provider and protector. I think another interesting challenge to this is that, okay, what's the solution then? All right. So let's hypothetically say you wanted more government intervention on this. Well, then that doesn't solve your problem either. That doesn't close the gap because now who's the provider? Well, it's the government, right? If you say, well, no, wait a second, I want to be able to keep my societal role as a male, right? Or my status or my position as a male, but I need the state to intervene. Well, that's no longer bioessentialism. That's just the welfare states. That's just subsidization. Okay. And we've already had that, by the way. We subsidize failing corporations all the time. We bailed out the auto industry. All right. So we already in effect have that. So you wouldn't regain your provider or protector status just because the government is cutting you checks. But I think some of the replies are interesting. So I'll go to some of the quotes. All right, so Mass Cell Madness says, none of these points are unique to men. which is very obvious. And as a man, I feel embarrassed by how ignorant that is towards women's suffering and the history of such diseases. A big reason we now suffer is because women are less believed in medicine and always have been. Okay, so this is known as medical misogyny. I don't have to like give a too much of a rundown of that. And that's true. And that medical misogyny, by the way, applies to men. So like Brad has also talked about how his doctors didn't believe him, right? Well, those same doctors didn't believe women either. Okay, because they'll apply the same logic to men as they were to women. And a very easy example of this is something along the lines of like, well, no, you're a tough, strong guy. You can't possibly be sick. Or have you considered that you're just getting older? Maybe it's something you ate, right? Or no, push through it. I heard that a lot when I was younger because I used to play sports. And every time I would get like some kind of injury, doctors would tell, no, you just push through it, walk it off. You're a guy, right? And that didn't do my back or my legs any favors. Um, and then also to opposite that, like I was believed actually earlier. I got a diagnosis within a month or two. I didn't have to go through 50 different doctors. I didn't have, you know what I'm saying? So like this the system already favored me as a male, as an Asian male, maybe too. I have no clue. Like he must be smart. He must know something. Anyways, but yes, to this person's point, yeah, if people had taken women more seriously, right, they would have taken the men more seriously today. All right, independent of what I think capitalism can or cannot solve. Um, right, and this is just pointing out again that these challenges are not unique, and then men can't accept that they're having an illness where they are treated like women. Yeah, I think that partly that's true, right? Um, there, when you become disabled like this and you have to go run through the same gauntlet that women have been running through, yeah, like you could be acrimonious about the fact that like, okay, um, if in a patriarchal society, the man is already working and then the woman gets sick, right? Yeah, it's nice to know that like the guy has a job or anyone has a job, whatever, because at the level of like intersectionality, none of this matters either. Because then you could have women being married to another woman, and that, or a man being married to another man, and one of them loses their job because they got sick, etc., and so forth. One of them leaves, one of them stays. There's all kinds of variations, and then gets broken down by race, age, etc., whatever. Um, Yeah, and then so Reese says the same thing, is that the societal role provider thing is a patriarchal pressure. Was again same issue. That and again, how do you solve it? This one's more sympathetic. Obviously, single men with long COVID are one of the most overlooked and hardest hit groups. Not a competition, but I truly believe we have it the worst. So the interesting about this is that it doesn't matter what you fucking believe, because it's not true. And if it is true, for example, right, it's only true at the level that but it's only true at the level of patriarchy. It's the only way it makes sense, you know. And also too capitalism. I mean, like it's so you have this two relatively paternalistic systems like that work hand in hand together. Capitalism, I think, subsumed patriarchy. I don't think they're two separate systems. But so what I know about this person, for example, is that they're gay, right? And they were left by their husband. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit. So most women who are chronically ill and are in a relationship and are married, they're more likely to be left by their male partners, right? And so like the oncology, for example, stats like bear this out. I think almost at a rate of like 4-1 or something along those lines. And so he's speaking from experience, right? Which is again, it's his experience. But to say that like it's the hardest hit group, again, it this only makes sense, right? In their minds, right? If you believe there's something unique about the male experience, of being sick, which there's not, because we have the other example, which is women, right? The fact that like you can't find a date or something like that, or have someone fuck you or whatever, or take care of you, is not evidence that men have it harder, right? It's just not evidence of anything. I'm sorry. Other than that, we live under a patriarchal capitalistic system that prevents actual socialization of care, mind you, and socialization of men who are able to build like broader support networks. And so, yes, again, man discovers what it's like to live with disease that predominantly affects women. You're close to getting it. All right, so that's kind of like pretty much all I have. I again wrote, or again, actually, I don't know if I mentioned it the first time. I wrote responses to that, but I didn't want to bore anyone with a response to every single one of his 10 unique challenges thing. I'll put that in the description below. And so that's all I really have. I know Brad, so he's not a bad guy. He's just poorly made. I thought he would be. He's got. If you're watching, Brad, just try to be on your best behavior, man. That's all I'm saying. Because if you want me to explain it further, I will. But that's the best as I can do explaining it. And if you have a solution to it, I'm all ears. But if you don't, then biology is clearly deterministic in this case, and it determined that you are disabled, and that's it. It selected you. Nature selected you to not be a provider anymore and to pass on your genes. So I don't even understand like what the argument is. If nature is the overriding force, right, and this doesn't have a social solution to it, then there's no reason complaining. That's pretty much all there is to it. Sorry.